had to go to on a mission, or it wasn't a mission. It was like, I think it was in like 2004. He had to work with the Mexico military, Fuerzas Especiales, something like that. He couldn't tell me because he was in the Navy. So he's all like, "Listen, I got to go for about 8 months." I want to say he left like in the middle of harvest, and it was just me and some other guy trying to finish the harvest. And
Trial by fire, man.
but he gave me that confidence. He was always there. He was like always calling me. He called me with this weird number, like 800, big number, and he was in a helicopter. He's like, "Hey, Julio, how's it going?" You hear the chops. I'm like, "Hey, yeah, I have a question. Yeah, I have this, that going on. What do you think?" "Oh, yeah, you got it, buddy. You got it." And then he goes, "Listen, I gotta go because I have to jump on an airplane," and he hang up, and I'm like, "Okay." But, yeah, so, luckily, there was a lot of winemakers around there because it was a big facility, and it was in the, 2004, 2005. That was when, what's that movie? Sideways came up?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
Sideways came in 2004, so there was, like, a lot of winemakers, a lot of people making wine. It was like a little community there because I was asking questions like, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this wine?" And everything went pretty well. So, yeah, so shout out to Etienne, I still call him. When I started my brand last year, I he was the first guy that I called because I told him, "Hey, man, because of you, I'm here, and I gotta always be thankful because you kind of showed me the love of this wine, of the wine industry."
All right, welcome everybody back to Barrels and Roots podcast. I'm Sean Trace. I'm your host, and I've got an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me. My name is Junio Vargas Ojeda. I'm winemaker for Cali Custom Crush, and I just recently did my own brand, which is
Nice.
Santo Diablo Wine Company. Just started not so long ago, so not even a year ago, but it's a brand.
That's really awesome, man. How
Yeah.
did you get into winemaking? What was it that kicked off this whole path for you and started you down this journey?
Oh man, I think it was kind of luck. I graduated from high school, 1999. I wasn't sure what was I gonna do. I was thinking of going to college, probably just hang out for a year, just test the waters, see what I was gonna do. I
Mm.
wasn't sure. And a cousin of mine worked in a winery in the valley. He was a bottling guy, and he's like, "Hey, so what's your plans?" And I told him my plans, and he's like, "Hey, if you want, come work with me. We need people over here to work in the bottling line." So I ended up going, and that's my first winery that I ended up with. 1999, working my first harvest there at End of Valley. Uh, and that's how it began pretty much. Started working the bottling line, then harvest came along and I was a night shift. So of course, because I was a new guy, so like, hey, you're gonna work in the night shift for harvest, and I didn't know what to expect. I was just
Yep.
19, so I was like, okay, let's go. So yeah.
How was there like a specific bottle or moment that made you fall in love with wine before you even worked with the cellar, or was it just some perfect chance that made you like take this path?
Ah, not really. At that time, I didn't know much about wine. My family didn't drink wine. They were kind of beer drinkers.
Mm.
I mean, our family comes from farming, right?
Yeah.
So my mom was a farmer, my dad was a farmer. They were working anywhere with strawberry fields, and then later on in the vineyards. But I didn't have any exposure to wine other than when I started working in 1999 there. It was the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir from San Luis Obispo County. And I didn't think of it as a drink because it was just more like a job. Uh, but yeah, there wasn't any specific till later on when I started getting into winemaking. Then I started kind of realizing the flavors and, all different types of wine that was out there. But at the beginning, it was just no, there wasn't much. It was just Chardonnay and Pinot Noir for me, and it wasn't something that I was kinda liking it because I was so young.
It just was what came along. Now, this leads me to ask you, like, because you know, kinda answered my second question, like, so you didn't have wine as part of your family culture, it was something that you guys found later.
Yeah, it was till I found my mentor pretty much that I started falling in love with wine. Because for me, it was just work. I mean,
Yeah.
my dad is a hardworking guy,
Yeah, right.
and every time I was working with him, it was just, this is what you have, your word and hardworking. You gotta
That's
be
awesome.
hard worker, this is so that's how I kinda ended up working in that field. I was always thinking about my dad, he was teaching me how to become a better person as guess as a worker, 'cause, I don't know, it was kinda like that thing, in my life, so we never had that exposure, um, of, of that.
I get it. My parents don't drink any wine, and so I found wine on my own, man, and so I'm 100% on the same boat, like,
Yeah.
it was something that I found, like, later on. My family moved up to the Napa Valley, and then I was just like, "Damn, what's all this," stuff, and I started tasting it, and I was like, "This tastes like shit," and then I have a first glass of wine, I was like, "This is not something that I really enjoy," but then my friends were like, "Try out some of other wines," and then finally I was like, I tried something, I was like, "Well, that's not bad. I can understand why someone would like that," and so I kept trying different wines, and I slowly got into it, but, like, you started talking there about a mentor. Tell me a little bit about how your mentor who was your mentor? How did you find them? And how did that relationship develop?
Oh, yeah, shout out to, Etienne Turlington. He's the guy that kinda, uh, helped me fell in love with this, and I always tell him, he's a winemaker, he has his own brand called, Cordon de Santa Barbara in Buellton now, but at that time, I met him in 2000, I think it was 2002, 2000 and early 2000s. So I worked in Endo Valley, and then, I only worked for a year, and then I decided to go back to college. So I was going back to community college, and I needed money at that time, and, us for us in a Mexican family, you need money, you gotta work for it. They don't give you money, so
Right.
I needed the money, and I was like, "Oh, I need to go work or something." My mom's like, "Yep, you need money, you gotta go work and go to school at the same time," and that's what I ended up doing. So I ended up applying at a, uh, at that time at a place where they find you jobs. I can't remember, like a
Temp
temp
agency, yeah.
agency jobs, and they asked me, like, "What do you know how to do?" I'm like, "Oh, I work in a winery." Worked in a winery for a year, I was dishwasher and, during my high school years, blah, blah, blah. So, like, "Okay, winery. Oh, there's a" it would happen to be harvest. So, like, "It's a harvest hat
Really?
going on right now at so and so's place in Santa Maria. You wanna go?" I'm like, "Yep." So I went there and I met Etienne. Etienne was a cellar master, and
Mm.
he's like, "Hey, since you worked in a winery before, basically the first thing you learn in a winery is cleaning. That's it.
Mhm.
Clean everything. Everything has to be spotless, clean." So I knew how to do that because that's pretty much the first year that I did. It was just clean tanks, clean everything, like all this, and inside and out, they were polished and everything. So 18's all like, make sure this custom crush, this is a stemmer. This is what the clients come in and process the fruit. Make sure this place is clean as you can get it. I'm like, okay. So that was my job. So I make sure everything was clean every day. And he was a Navy SEAL. So
Damn.
18 is in the Navy SEAL. He was in the reserves also, and then doing the winemaking. So he was like really like particular on cleaning. So even though
Mhm.
I knew how to clean it, he was always pointing stuff out to me. He's like, "Oh, see this, see that, blah blah blah." And I kind of worked through there to the harvest. He loved what I did, and he offered me the full time position after harvest. He's like, "Listen, there's going to be a full time. I want you to come with me. I like the way you work. You want to work with me?" I ended up going. I ended up going full time and then part time school. Um, that first year that I started going full time, he got a job as a winemaker. So he left his position in the company where I started because of him and went somewhere
Mm.
else to work as a winemaker. Uh, and then later on, I think I worked there a year. And when the second year he pulled me in, he's like, "Hey, I need help with the winemaking here, since now I'm not the winemaker, I need some help because the client's bringing in more fruit, whatever, and I went with him. So he explained to me everything, like apples and oranges, So he was like, "We do
Uh-huh.
this because of this reason. This is why you do this. This is why we add bentonite to the wine. This is why we chill the tanks, etc." Um, and in the other positions where I worked at, because I worked with big companies, or custom crush facilities, it was just do that, go help this guy,
Right.
no explanation. With A10, he was kinda, like, telling me everything, like, why is there's a reason why we do this, there's a reason why we, go here, or there's a reason why we wait to do to do certain things, so, over time, I worked with him for probably 5 or 6 years, and there was one time when he was like, "Hey, we're paying you too much. I can't you reached your limit on payment. You gotta give me something else, so I'm willing to pay for your schools to get a viticultureology course in Hancock because I was going to community college, and then once you get that, then we could pay you more." And I was like
Mm.
24 years
Mhm.
old, so I was like, "I want the money, I wanna get more money." I wasn't sure yet that that was gonna be my career, so I just started going. I went to those courses, and as I went there, I started appreciating more wine and how, unique it is, so that's how, like, it kinda it kinda came, with A10 and, I fall in love with that. I have more stories since he was in the Navy, so that guy,
Yeah, tell me
oh,
stories,
man.
man, that's awesome.
One year, he had to go to, on a mission, or it wasn't a mission, it was like I think it was in, like, 2004, he had to work with the Mexico military, Fuerzas Especiales, something like that. He couldn't tell me because he was in the Navy, so he's all like, "Listen, I gotta go for about 8 months." So, I wanna say he left, like, in the middle of harvest, and
Wow.
it was just me and some other guy trying to finish the harvest, and, um
Trial by fire, man.
oh, dude, um, but he gave me that confidence. He was
Yeah.
always there, he was, like, always calling me. He called me with this weird number, like 800, big number, and he was in a helicopter. He's like, "Hey, Julio, how's it going?" You hear the chops. I'm like, "Hey, yeah, I have a question. Yeah, I have this, that going on. What do you think?" "Oh, yeah, you got it, buddy. You got it." And then he goes, "Listen, I gotta go because I have to jump on an airplane," and he hang up, and I'm like, "Okay." But, yeah, so, luckily, there was a lot of a lot of winemakers around there because it was a big facility, and it was in the, 2004, 2005. That was when, what's that movie? Sideways came up?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
Sideways came in 2004, so there was, like, a lot of winemakers, a lot of people making
Yeah,
wine, and, it was like a little community there because I was asking questions like, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this wine?" And everything went pretty well. So, but yeah, so shout out to ATN, I still call him. When I started my brand last year, he was the first guy that I called because I
that's
told him,
awesome.
"Hey, man, because of you, I'm here, and I gotta always be thankful because you kind of showed me the love of this wine, of the wine industry." His family's from Belgium, so he's French, so he was bringing in some French, interns, and I kinda learned through that too, and just the way he he taught me or showed me how to the wine process goes is the
That's
way that
awesome.
I've yeah, kinda fell in love with that.
When you have someone who believes in you, someone who sets out that path and, like, it really changes directions, it's like and, like, I wanted to ask you too because, that transition point where you have someone who believes in you. I remember, like, I studied martial arts. It's totally different genre of things, but, like, I had a teacher one day, and he was like, "Hey, I can't come into class. You're leading class tonight." And I remember that, like, what? Like, I'm leading class tonight, it's like, yeah,
Man,
he's like,
it's
I got an
scary.
emergency. Yeah, it's super scary. And you're suddenly like, oh, dude, I don't feel like I can lead class. But then you start putting yourself through the motions and people around you like support you as you step up. And that's the cool thing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like most of the people around you want to see you succeed, and so they're just like, they are like, yeah, man, keep it up. Do what you're doing. But I want to ask you because there was a point where I transitioned from this like feeling like I was just always a student to being like, I'm a teacher as well. But like, at what point did you go from like I work in wine to I'm a winemaker? Was there like a moment where you realized that, like where you popped a bottle and you're like, I made this
Yeah.
shit,
I think now that I'm making my brand, that's when I start thinking, "Okay, this is real. I'm the winemaker," but
Nice.
in reality, I was w the way I was taught by my dad was, treat whatever's products like if it's yours. So every single time worked in the, because I worked 15 years, uh, as a cellar master somewhere else, and I
Yeah.
started working there, and I made wine for so many other clients, and every single time I had a chance to touch that wine, to do something with that wine, I was always, like, being out in my mind, I was always thinking, I'm gonna treat it like if it's mine." I'm the
Yeah.
owner. I want the best for this wine. I don't wanna mess it up. So, if, uh so every time I see, like, reviews on some other clients, like, high good reviews or good points, I knew that I touched the wine, and I was, like, proud of
Yes.
that, you know? But to say that I was, like, a winemaker, I have to say another shout out to, this other guy, uh, Michael Haddix. He's the guy that has his, Custom Crush where I'm working as a winemaker, which is a Cali Custom Crush. He called me up. So he called me. He was a winemaker, uh, at a place that I was working at as cellar master. He was the grape producer, so he was the one that was looking for the grapes for the clients and, did all that. He left. Sooner after that, I stayed there, and then late years, in 2023, he calls me. He's like, "Hey, I'm building this custom crush. I need a winemaker. Are you willing to work with me? As a winemaker?" I'm all like, "Oh, okay." I never had the title, right, of winemaker.
Mhm.
Always been, when I was working with Etienne, I had the cellar master, assistant winemaker, and then the economy went down in 2006.
Mhm.
And then I started moving somewhere else. A lot of wineries closed down, and then I got a job as a cellar master somewhere else where I worked 15 years. Anyway, so he calls me. He's all like, "Hey, are you willing to come over, become a winemaker? I have this client, blah blah blah. I'm starting this custom crush." And I said, "Sure, let's go." So I guess at that point, uh, I was always, even though I knew what to do with the wine, I kinda always needed to tell 'em, the client or the winemaker or the owner, "Hey, based on this, I think it needs a little bit of that," and they would be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, no, let's just tweak it a little less or so." With Michael, I was like, "Hey, Michael, I think it needs hey, Mike, it needs this." He's like, "Junio, you got it. You got it, man.
Mm.
Go for it." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" "Yeah, yeah, you got it. It's all you." So that's when I started making, the first vintage 2023. We we did around, I don't know, 35 different varietals.
That's right.
Or yeah.
Holy shit.
So,
That's a lot of varietals,
we
man.
did some Pinot, Malbec, Petit Verdot, Torrontés, Vermentino, a lot of stuff that I never did, because I was so used to Santa Maria Hills, which is Pinot Chardonnay, and so on. And here in Paso, it was a little bit different. So it turned out pretty well. So once I got the first 2 lots, the first fruit came in, I got the analysis, I started doing the processing, and then I started tasting the wine or how it was aging, and I was like, "Dude, this tastes really great." Okay, it gave me the confidence. Okay, now I'm official winemaker. I make the decisions for this wine, and, it was like more in that area, you know? So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, and it makes me think about a couple things because it's like there's that moment where you cross that line from thinking about something, liking something, and just being absolutely doing it, you know? And it's like, and it sneaks up on you. I might remember my wife. My wife is a professional singer, and I asked her once if there was a moment where she was um standing on stage and it changed. And she said, like, when she was younger, she would sing with her parents and she'd go to these small venues and stuff. She was always singing, right? But there was one day where she got onto this big show and the lights were on her and she just looked out at the audience and she's like, oh, I'm here now, you know? And then when she won this big award, she was just like, damn, man, it's different. The whole game changed for her, you know? And that was wild because it was something that was just, it was, she didn't change, but that confidence clicked over and that thought, you know what I mean? She was the same person. But, like, I also wanna ask you because you pursued your degree while working already in the industry. What made you go back and what did it change for you?
At first, when I started going back for the viticulture knowledge, it was just because of I was 23, 24. It was just because, I wanted to get paid more, right? Because
Right.
ATM was like,
Which
if
is
you
good
want,
reason, man, you know?
yeah. He's like, "Hey, if you want more mo because he told me, he's like, "You're at the top right now. I cannot put you in as a winemaker because you don't have a degree, blah, 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 so give me a something." So I was like, "Okay." Well, at that time, there was some it was in 2003, so at the community college, they didn't have that many classes yet for viticulturology, so I just started taking some classes because of that.
Yeah,
But I got the associate's degree in viticulturology. It wasn't the bachelor's or anything, but it was something for him, to be, "Okay, I can call you, the winemaker, assistant winemaker for this." So, yeah. So, if I at the beginning, it was because of this, but then after that, after I started getting involved with him, and knowing the wine and falling in love with the wine, then I started to take some classes for myself, because I wanna learn more. Uh,
yeah,
there's so much stuff that I still don't know, the wine industry is so big. I mean,
yeah,
just the vineyard itself, to understand the vines itself, it's just that's
yeah.
another world.
That's on something that I wanted to ask you because, like, there are people who come in and they're super cool people. Like, I did this job and I transitioned to wine. I did this job and I transitioned to winemaking. It's interesting because there's a lot of people that have come from, like, different areas. But your family were farmers, man. Like, and, like, I respect people that can grow things. My great aunt was I can't even remember what title she had, but she was just so good with plants, and she was an expert on, like, all types of plants, and she lived in Canada, and they brought her into, like, the, University of Toronto. She was, like, a special, guest there all the time because they would have any type of plant, and, like, it's not growing. She'd walk in there and be like, "Just," and it just, it just
Oh,
grows. She
yeah.
was wild like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
She had that ability, man, and, do you think that coming from family that worked with plants, worked with the land, that you have a different understanding than other winemakers might?
I do understand, the effort that comes with it, like, it takes a lot of work for
Takes a
coming in.
lot of
I
work,
mean,
man.
it takes a lot of work and I come and when I was at high school, every time I l every time I got out, I have to go help my dad, that's how I was. Summer school, there wasn't a summer break for me. I was out in the fields, for summer, for winter, same thing, and my dad worked in the vineyard kinda late, when I was in high school, so I was going out there, help him out too, you know, every chance I can, every chance I get, so, um, yeah, like, people that know the work in the field, they're farmers, it kinda gives you a different feeling, when you're touching a fruit, it kinda gives you that edge. I don't know, for me it is. For me, it's something like I know where it comes from. I know how hard it is to pick it. I know how hard it is to grow it. I know how hard it is to get it this good too. It's not just watering it.
It's a lot of work, man, and I think that's one of the things people don't realize. I don't think people realize that for all of our food. Like, You're eating
Oh,
a
yeah.
nice juicy watermelon. People don't realize the amount of work that went into growing that. You know, strawberries, especially strawberries, man, there's a lot. It's an intensive thing to grow, you know?
Yeah.
And I wish more people could get out. I think one of the best things my dad ever did was when we were kids, my dad's like, "All right, kids, we're gonna go out and help your our his friend said, "Hey, I got peanuts that need to be picked, harvested. Bring your kids out and let them do some work and see what it's like." That shit was hard, man. It was
It
really,
is.
really hard. You know, digging up peanuts, fucking pulling out of the ground. It was like I was just like maximum respect for people, anyone who works with food, man. It's wild like that. But I want to ask you another question too. Like, if you were to like pour 3 glasses of wine right now for a new person who's just like experiencing wine, what wine would you pour for someone?
Um, man, definitely I'll do probably some sweet wines. I'll probably do probably a sweet Riesling to begin with. Maybe I started with port wine.
Mm,
I kinda like that. It
right?
was kinda strong and sweet. Yeah, so I started with port, so some port, some Riesling, and maybe some dry Chardonnay at the end, but yeah, so my first drink, I think it was port. Yeah.
I like that. Well, I wanna ask you this, like, what part of the winemaking and the process still gives you the most joy even after all these years? What do you really love?
Everything, really. The thing that kinda gets me, like, at the beginning of harvest is just seeing that fruit come in, and I like
Yeah.
taking a bite of that first cluster that comes in, and just tasting the sweetness, savor it, and then thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be a good wine." Or just by tasting it, you'll know if it needs something. Like, for me, in my case, I'm like, "Okay, it's not too sweet," it's probably low in sugar or, the taric is not there, the acid's not there, it's probably gonna need some, acid there later on, who knows, but just tasting that berry at the beginning of harvest, for me, it's something else, It's like almost a must-have, a religion for me every single time, every harvest. I love it. I love when it comes in, and then I love how it ferments too. Once you get in the cellar and everything's fermenting, you get all these smells in the cellar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, it's gotta be that, the beginning of a harvest.
That's awesome. I think that one thing that I miss I live in Southeast Asia now, but, like, I grew up in the Napa Valley, and one of the things that I tell people, like, I told my wife, I tried to describe to her the smells in and around, like, wine country, whether it be in Paso or Sonoma or wherever you're at, or Napa. Like, when around after harvest, I was like, "You don't understand how this smells here. It's like it's wild." And we were driving,
Yeah,
and she's just like, "The whole area smells like wine." And, like, she
yeah.
was just like, "Dude, this is amazing." And people don't get that. They don't understand it until they go there. It's wild. It smells so damn good, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanna ask you this, is there a wine you made that you're proud of, and what made it special to you? Like, one that really stands out. I'm sure you're proud of like, most of them, but one that really
Yeah,
popped.
I like all of them, but I think Pinot Noir has something in my heart, because my dad was, like I said, he's a farmer, and all the conversations I had with him at the end of his life, because he's no longer here, but every single time I was there at his house, he was always talking about Pinot Noir. It's like, "Pinot Noir, the plant's so delicate, this and that, how we pick it, you have to be careful with it." All the winemakers are really, uh picky about it and yada, yada, yada. So every single time I'm in the winery and I'm making wine, I think about my dad. But every single
Mm.
time I'm doing the Pinot, it's it's me thinking about him and, the work he did.
Uh-huh.
So I'll say Pinot. Pinot is one of the things that, every single time I make something and you're tasting it, it brings you back.
What is it about Pinot that you think actually pops? Like, what is it about Pinot that the taste or something, what makes it really special to you?
For me, it's just that. It's just that where my dad kinda worked at, he did, plant, he talked about it, the conversations. It's not the taste, it's just that feeling that
Yeah.
goes behind that, the memory, kinda.
Oh, for sure, man. The memory makes a difference, man. Then the wine that you love, what wine do you love to hate? What wine is like one that you got this love-hate relationship with, man?
Oh, just on winemaking, for me, the hardest one that I deal with, I mean, it's just not because of it's just because of the climate or kinda doesn't ripe well, or it's hard to get it the perfect every single time. For me, it's Grenache, one of them.
Yeah.
Grenache is really hard for me. Uh, just because the cluster is so big, and then you get some really nice colors on the front, but on the back, it's like green because there wasn't
Mm,
any sun exposure or the sugar didn't, etcetera. So when it gets to fermentation or when you finish fermentation and it's pressed, the flavor for me is not there. I like really picky for myself, but some clients are like, "Oh, perfect." But for me, it's like I know it's better. I taste it better. I tasted a lot of Grenache and really good Grenache, and for me, this isn't it. So
yeah.
for me, it's one of those, yeah, kind of tough.
Hard to do right.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get it right. Or, because I don't have a saying in the picking or to bring it, because the farmer most of the time the farmer brings it in and they're like, it's ready, the bricks are good, and then they bring it in and it's not, or the client picks it too early for me in my case. And so I never got a perfect Grenache per se that I kind of want to say this is perfection. It's not. It's always something, off.
It's always in the mouth. That's wild.
Yeah, like I mean the flavor wise for just the clusters.
It's tricky, it's tricky to figure out how to get things right all the time,
Yeah.
man. I mean, in lots of areas, but there's some things that are harder than others, Which leads to another question I've got. Like, why should people care about wine? Why do you think wine is still so important for us?
Oh man. Wine's been here forever. You think about it. Yeah, man, it's been here for a long time. I mean, the first miracle Jesus did was wine. It was in a
Right?
it was in a wedding, and there was any wine, and they're like, "Hey, make some wine," and he probably made some, red wine. I don't know.
Mhm.
And just by that, that kinda tells you everything. I'm like, "Wow, Jesus made his first miracle was making wine," and it's amazing. You know what I mean? And it's something he didn't do beer. He didn't say, "Hey, I'm gonna make beer instead of wine," and, or, something else or, you know, but just wine's been here for a long time. It has a lot of history. It's the only wine I think it's one of the only ones that can evolved in a bottle. Tequila won't do that. Tequila will evolve in a barrel, but once it's out from the barrel to a bottle, that's it.
Yeah.
You could age that tequila for 30 years and it will taste the same. It's not gonna make a difference. Any wine could age. Any good wine will age better than others, but, you can get a cheap Zinfandel and put it in a shelf for 5 years and it will still evolve. It might not be good, right? Because it wasn't meant for aging. Because there's certain wines supposed to be made for aging, but it will evolve. And, so just that too. I mean, wine evolves in a bottle. That's insane. And having it all that history, that's even, crazier. And being part of that too, it's amazing.
Well, let me ask you this one too. When you open a bottle at home just for yourself, what are you usually opening?
I like the blends myself. So
Oh, yeah.
so on my brand, Santo Diablo, I'm trying to do everything blends. It's not gonna be a single variety. So I like the red wines. I like some blends, Cab Merlot blend, Malbec Merlots. This one, so personally, I like red wines. So uh, if I do open a bottle, it's gonna be a red one with some. Obviously, I like a lot of meat. I do barbecues a lot, so it goes good with that. So definitely red wines.
I love it, man. I'm a huge red fan as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love reds, and it's kinda my go-to. If people wanna learn, like if someone wants to get into winemaking, where would you tell them to start, man?
If they really love to want, I think start from the bottom. I think
Mm.
definitely need to start from the bottom, and that will kinda give you an idea of the stuff that needs to do on a daily basis because people don't kind of people want to be in the wine business, but they don't understand the whole production process or 90% of the time it's just cleaning, grinding, making sure the barrels are clean inside and out, everything has to be, cleaning, 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 and more cleaning. Yeah, so I think start from the beginning, start from the basic production. I started from bottling and then moved to production. So, yeah, for sure. I'll say start from the bottom, production, and then you'll understand the principles of, I guess, of the concepts.
I got started in filmmaking a long time ago. It was really interesting because when I got started in filmmaking, I got onto this big movie production, and at the very bottom, I was like the lowest of the low, man, and it was it was rough, but, like, I just was like, it was, 12 to 18-hour days, but it was fun as hell, dude, and I got to watch these people work. I got to sit there and be in it with all these people that were really famous and really good, and I just sat there and was just like, but the thing is, like, if I had have tried to, shortcut that step and get to a different level faster, I wouldn't have learned the real important foundation. And so
Yeah,
I just was like, one of the things that I find that's important for learning any skill is coming at it with a degree of humility, like understanding you do not have all the answers. You are starting out and that you just got to start out somewhere and to like not be stressed about that. Not beat yourself up like, oh, I should know more. No, you shouldn't. You're where you're at and be cool with that. Be cool with just starting out and starting somewhere. Um, if you could go back in time and change one thing about your path, like, of learning wine, what would you change, or what advice would you give your younger self to, like, be further along?
yeah. I think probably don't be afraid of starting my own brand. Like it was
Yeah.
always in my head to start. Even in 2006, it was in my head to start the brand, and
Hey,
I
dude.
never got a chance to do it because I was too scared, didn't wanna commit to having that amount of money invested in your brand or in your business. I was like, "Oh, that's too much. I can't afford that right now. I'm just gonna wait."
Yeah.
So, just not pulling the trigger sooner just because I was too scared of, commitment of your
Yeah.
brand and knowing you don't know right now, I don't even know how my brand's gonna do right now, right? But I'm, like, more I guess I'm less scared, because I've been doing it forever, so I'm just kinda wanna do it for not for me, it's gonna be for my kids, 'cause I have 2 little girls,
Yeah.
and they're starting to like wine. I mean, not like wine, but they're smelling it. I'm telling them, "Hey, smell this. What do you smell here?" They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
peaches." And so for me, it's like, I wish I would've started this sooner, wish I would've started that, the brand, and who knows where I would've been right now, but yeah.
That's awesome, man. If people wanna learn about you and what you're doing and the wine that you make, where should they go look, and find out more about you?
I mean, you can look up, Santo Diablo Wines.com. I mean, I don't have much. It's just a IG right now, and, I haven't started my website. It's on the works, but definitely there. Check it out, and you'll see some posts.